All right, we've got a bombshell story to talk about now in the Julian Assange case. The CIA plot to kill Julian Assange has some eye-opening new details today. Now, as you know, the UK government is very, very close to extraditing Julian Assange to the United States, where he will, of course, be tried for war crimes, right? He will be tried for espionage and violating the Espionage Act, which is total garbage. And likely he will be, unfortunately, snuffed out by the U.S. government because they've already told us that's their intention. You don't have to take my word for it. High-ranking U.S. officials have admitted that there is a plot to take Julian Assange's life. More on that in a moment. We'll get to that in a moment. But remember that for the context here, Julian Assange is a journalist who didn't hack anyone's computer and steal documents. No, he published documents, leaked videos that prove the U.S. was committing war crimes. Right? That's what his great crime is here.
Well, he's not been charged with any crime. He's being held, right, in the hopes that the government can do that to him, in the government's hopes, but he has not been charged.
And of course, you know, the U.S. continues to commit war crimes. I mean, this continues to happen. And WikiLeaks has uncovered this information. They didn't steal the documents. They were given the documents and they published it. He's a journalist, right? And arguably at the highest level of journalism, right? Holding powerful people to account. Well, two big developments I want to draw your attention to. First is a stunning letter written to the Home Secretary. Here is the letter to the Home Secretary for Human Rights in Europe. This is from the Commissioner of Human Rights. I'm writing to you to the Home Office in the UK. Now, of course, Priti Patel is the minister who is going to write off on sending Julian Assange to the United States. So now this new human rights letter coming in just a short time ago. I'm writing to you regarding the case of Julian Assange. I've been following the developments in Mr. Assange's case with great attention in the judicial proceedings so far. The focus has mostly been on Mr. Assange's personal circumstances, right? But then it goes on to explain that, in particular, my view of the indictment by the United States against Mr. Assange raises important questions about the protection of those published classified information, those that publish classified information that are in the public interest, including information that exposes human rights violations. The broad and vague nature of the allegations against Mr. Assange and of the offense listed in the indictment are troubling, as many of them concern activities at the core of investigative journalism in Europe and beyond. Consequently, allowing Mr. Assange's extradition on the basis would have a chilling effect on media freedom and could ultimately hamper the press in performing its task as purveyor of information and public watchdog in democratic societies. Now, he goes on to say, as I have previously stated, it's my position that taking into account both these wider implications and the concerns raised by the independent experts about Mr. Assange's treatment upon extradition, the government of the United Kingdom was not allowed extradition in the United States. I therefore call upon you to decide against the extradition of Mr. Assange. So right there, I mean, it doesn't get any hotter than that. I call upon you to not extradite Julian Assange to the United States. You should not do that. He's not alone, of course. There was a huge protest yesterday outside the Home Office in the United Kingdom demanding that Julian Assange be kept in the UK, not extradited to the United States. So protests erupting. And remember, this is the same United States government, by the way, that is actively trying to pursue war crimes charges against the Russian government. Like the hypocrisy here for the invasion of Ukraine. Like, okay, we're going to arrest a journalist for uncovering war crimes, and then we're also going to try to prosecute Russia for war crimes. Like, double standard hypocrisy here. By the way, the International Criminal Court, of course, where the United States would want to try these war crimes, is something we have actively avoided being a part of because we are worried that we would be tried for our own war crimes. Like, the hypocrisy, the double standard here is just like thick. You can cut it with a knife. Of course, the other part of this big story of the past 24 hours is the wife of Julian Assange. Stella Assange just released a new video entitled "The CIA Plot to Kill Julian Assange, My Husband." Perhaps another reason not to send him to the U.S., where he'll likely be killed by the U.S. government. And she lays out, of course, the bombshell story about the moved to kill Julian Assange by the United States government. The CIA developed plans to kidnap Julian Assange, per this report. WikiLeaks was a complete obsession for CIA Director Mike Pompeo. And as she points out in this video, over 30 different people are on the record talking about this specifically. And here is what she had to say about this.
The position of the UK right now is that it will extradite a publisher to the country that conspired to murder him. How can the UK government even contemplate the extradition of the man who the US was trying to assassinate? This assassination plot was as revenge for what WikiLeaks had published. When I read the story, I was relieved in a way, because this is the reality that Julian has been facing. And there has been a lot of gaslighting. For years when he was in the embassy, the refrain was that Julian was paranoid, that no one was trying to prosecute him. The only one that was keeping him in the embassy was himself. And as soon as he was arrested, the true reality was there for everyone to see. So it was extremely important that this came to light. The story has over 30 US intelligence officials, including very senior and named, going on record and saying that the US government was actively plotting to assassinate Julian inside the UK. This is incredible. This is a country plotting to assassinate a journalist because of what he has published. This is precisely what the UK government criticizes in other states. Conspiring to murder a journalist is wrong. It's wrong if Russia does it, and it's wrong if the United States does it too. But there's a lot of this story that we still don't know. How much did the UK government know? How far was the UK government willing to go along with the US government's plans under the CIA directorship of Mike Pompeo? These are questions that remain unanswered.
So yes, part of this story is that more than 30 former officials say that the former CIA director, Mike Pompeo, was apparently motivated to get even with WikiLeaks following its publication of all this sensitive information, the CIA hacking tools specifically, which the agency considered the largest data loss in CIA history. Michael Isikoff is the chief investigative correspondent for Yahoo News, longtime investigative journalist, broke this story along with a couple of other journalists on this plot to assassinate Julian Assange. And here's what he had to say about it.
As is well known, WikiLeaks had been on the radar screen of U.S. intelligence for years, going back to its publications, in 2010 of the State Department cables, the Afghan war logs and Iraq war logs that had been provided by Chelsea Manning, and, of course, Assange's role in publishing the Russian purloined DNC emails and Podesta emails during the 2016 election. But what really set Mike Pompeo, the new CIA director, off was that Vault 7 leak. This was on his watch. This was his agency. And while Pompeo had been somewhat dismissive of the Russia allegations and Assange's role in that, the Vault 7 leak focused his energies on getting back at WikiLeaks and Assange, at dismantling the organization. I was in the room when Pompeo gave that speech in early April 2017, where he described for the first time WikiLeaks as a non-state hostile intelligence service. I thought and assumed, like many, it was some kind of rhetorical talking point, a grabby line that Pompeo had come up with. In fact, that designation internally opened the door for the CIA to launch and plan all sorts of operations that didn't require a presidential finding and didn't and wasn't going to be briefed to Capitol Hill. These were offensive counterintelligence activities. Pompeo, there's abduction plans to basically a snatch operation to take Assange from the Ecuadorian embassy. There was talk of assassination, although we want to be clear, that never was forwarded to the White House. That was internally within the CIA. Certainly, I think there's going to be already sort of calls for an investigation into this, certainly questions for the CIA, but also I think most immediately there's this extradition case before the British courts, and every indication that there are folks, including Assange's legal team, that want to bring some of this to the attention of the British courts as grounds for blocking the extradition of Assange to a country some of whose officials were talking about kidnapping and assassinating him not too many years ago.
So, I mean, we're this close. Like it all comes down to like this decision.
Can you imagine?
Like, can you imagine that decision? Like, okay, do I send them to the United States? All the pressure we're getting from the United States government. We just had this bombshell Brexit story, which we covered here, which shows the alignment of the UK wants to be drawn closer to Washington, D.C. So this would be a real moment if they say we are going to deny this extradition to the United States.
Well, I mean, this plea from the European Office of Human Affairs is very official, right? It comes from the European Union, but oops, there was Brexit. So the UK has no obligation to the European Union. It's just one other superpower saying, please don't do this. This is really how we feel. She's speaking on behalf of the European Union, and I think probably most European leaders would agree, but they don't want to upset the United States, right? And so the story that we did the other day about these leaked emails about Brexit and how Brexit was a coordinated movement to draw closer power aligned with the United States, well, then you kind of got to do what they want if that's what you're going for, right? So this is a real moment. This is a real, like, you know, the moment in Love Actually, where he stands up to the United States and says, you know, now the president shall be prepared for Britain to be much stronger. Like, okay, let's have that moment, right? Let's do that around this story, which is just about a person who is getting us access to information.
Yeah. Information that we would want and would want to use to prosecute Russia and Vladimir Putin of war crimes, right? But in this case, where it shows, you know, like exposing the United States government, we want to take this guy's life or put him in prison for the rest of his life. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. We will continue to follow this story on the show. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. You know, we've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.